And you've got an abundance of God. See, one of the things that we need to understand is when we don't trust Jesus to meet our deepest needs, we automatically transfer that to the people around us, especially our spouse. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian. It matters if you're daily trusting Jesus to meet your deepest needs. Where is the place that you turn to get your needs met? And if you turn to people, you're going to get disappointed, even the best people. But you're not going to be disappointed in God. And so when we go into our prayer closet early in the morning, that's where I take every issue of my life. Jesus is my best friend. He understands me like nobody else. And He's the kindest, most gracious person I've ever known, and I've known Him for 40 years. He's more real to me than you are. He's the neatest, most wonderful person that you'll ever be with, and He's your very best friend, and He's just waiting on you every day. And when you get in His presence, you can talk about any sin, any temptation, any problem. He's real. He's not a plastic Jesus. He's a real Jesus. You can talk to Him about anything. And when I walk out of my prayer closet and Karen walks out of her prayer closet, the rooms that we have our quiet time in, we're ready to love each other. But we're not ready before then. Remember in the Garden of Eden, it was not Adam and Eve, it was Adam and Eve and God. And when they rejected God, then they rejected each other, and mankind became corrupted. So when I'm talking about you meeting each other's needs, what I'm saying is, if you marry the best person in the world, they cannot be Jesus Christ for you. Marriage only works with Jesus in the middle of the marriage. And if you're having fights about unmet needs, you need to differentiate. Am I talking about the needs that God should be meeting, and I'm putting that expectation on you, like the Samaritan woman at the well? Or are these the needs that we need to be meeting in each other? So let me go now and talk about the needs that we need to meet in each other. And I'll talk about the 4 basic needs. Now, met needs in marriage, I'm talking about the needs that we can meet for each other after we have a relationship with Jesus. It creates and maintains satisfaction in the relationship. When you ask a person if they have a good marriage, whether they say yes or no is basically, based on whether their needs are getting met. And when you have a chronic situation where needs are not getting met, basically a person is not as happy. The second thing that met needs does is it minimizes the risk of outside affairs and outside attraction and things like that. Nothing justifies it, but I'm saying when needs are not getting met, outside attraction increases. Here are 2 big problems that happen in meeting each other's needs. And the first is the rejection of the inherent differences in our spouse. The rejection. When Karen and I got married, I have my dad, my mom, my 2 brothers. My mom worked all the time when I was growing up. I didn't have any knowledge of women at all. And I loved my wife physically. I thought that she was physically beautiful, and she is physically beautiful. But I thought she was the weirdest human I'd ever met. And and I'm normal. I am the epicenter of normal. If you're not like me, you're not normal. So my job was to make her normal like me. And so we got married, and she would begin to tell me about her needs, and I would roll my eyes, and I would say things like this. That's weird. That's just not right. Now, what I know today is she's a normal woman, and what she was saying was completely normal. Now, again, she did the same thing to me. And I would say something to her, and she would roll her eyes. She would kind of scoff at it and reject it. But let me say, when you reject my needs, you reject me. And rejection hurts. When you're telling each other about your needs and you're rejecting, when I say inherent, I mean God made me that way. You can roll your eyes and scoff at it as much as you want. There's nothing I can do about it. That's the way God made me. We are different by God's design, and one of the number 1 problems is rejecting the inherent difference. The other problem that we have is translating our spouse's needs into our language. Now, one of a man's primary needs is sex. I'll talk about this more in just a minute, okay? Like when men are asked, what their most important needs are, I mean, it's always at the top of the list. A woman's most basic needs is not sex. It is non-sexual touching and affection. There's not a cell in a man's brain that can get that one. Women, there was a poll that was done, and women were asked how important sex was to them. They ranked it 13th. 12th was gardening together. And so that's just not right. That's just not right. I'm just telling you right now, it's not right. But that's just how we see the world. And so a woman, would come up to a man and she would say, honey, can you just hold me? Well, he can understand that. So what he begins to do is to translate that into his language, and he says, oh, well, she wants sex. Who can blame her? Because he can't accept the fact that she would have that need. So a man goes to his wife and says, honey, I need sex. And again, she thinks, well, A, you're a pervert. You want it way too much, and I'm not going to feed the monster. Want to starve a monster, you would kill a monster, you starve it. I'm not going to do that. And she's sitting there, and she's thinking, no, actually what you really need is you need romance. You just need to talk. If you would just talk more, you wouldn't need all that sex. Need a little Barry Manilow music, a little romantic dinner. He says, no, I just need sex. That's as complicated as it gets right there. And so what we do is we reject what our spouse is saying, and then we translate it into our language, and it creates tremendous frustration in the marriage relationship. And so what I'm going to teach you in the next few minutes, I've taught all over the world for the last 30 years, and I'm saying this is how God made it, period. You can't change it. And there may be a few things in your relationship that are different than what I'm going to say, but these are generally true for the way that God made it. So let me talk about the 4 needs of a man and the 4 needs of a woman and how to meet those. Number 1 need of a man is honor. And I talked about this morning, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but I want to say this. It is the number 1 it's the mega need that men have. And when you're talking to a man, it doesn't matter what you're saying, it has to be encrypted with honor. I believe in you. You're a good man. I'm on your side. I'm glad I married you. Even if let me say, every mother with boys, you have to understand he's just a little man. You'll never influence a boy until you respect him. This is our mega need. So here's how to meet your husband's need for honor. Number 1, allow him to fail. Some of the greatest damage that wives do is trying to keep damage from being done. Let me give you an example. I'm not talking about destructive behavior. If your husband is involved in some type of destructive behavior, you get help, you get intervention, you do whatever you need to do. But a lot of the things that happen in life are just, you disagree with your husband. You disagree with the way he's doing something. And so let me give you an example here of Joyce Meyer. Joyce Meyer was telling a story one day about her and Dave were in the car. And couples have a lot of problems in the car. If you want to see if you have demons, get in the car together. That's a great test of demonic activity. And so Joyce Meyer was in the car with her husband, Dave, and they were going to the store. They were just going down the store. And they get in the car, and so she's telling him how to drive. Okay, you should have turned back there. That was the quicker way back there. You should have turned back there. And at one light, she's saying, you're going to kill us. Why didn't you stop? And at the next light, she's saying, you could have made that. I don't know if y'all have that issue. So Dave is getting madder. Her husband is getting madder and madder and madder. And finally, they get to a stop sign. And they're not talking now because they're both so mad. And the Holy Spirit said to Joyce, why can't you shut up? Why can't you shut up? You're just going to the store. Just let him drive. Let him get you there. Let him fail. There was a woman in our church. We asked her to share. This was at a marriage banquet, a woman that I had known all of my life. She was actually in a Bible study with my mother-in-law before Karen and I got married, and my mother-in-law had a Bible study praying that we wouldn't get married. My in-laws hated me at that point. They brought guys over to meet Karen while I was there. So, true. And so this woman I've known all my life, and she was in that Bible study, and so her and her husband were in our church in Amarillo and had a fantastic marriage. I asked them to share their testimony. And she got up and she said, my husband, when we got married, we almost divorced because I beat him down. And she said, one day I woke up and the Lord said, if you'll leave him alone, I'll make him into a man of God. And she said, my full-time job at that point was to love my husband and to honor him. And her husband is one of the best, most godly men you've ever met. And she said, as soon as I stopped, the Holy Spirit started. And she said, my husband is the man he is, because the Holy Spirit made him that way, not me. And her husband's a phenomenal guy. You got to allow your husband to fail. You got to close your mouth sometime. And again, this is the second one. You can confront your husband in love, but let God be the enforcer. Your husband's equal. You can say anything you want to say, but don't be the enforcer. Don't browbeat. Don't punish. Don't withdraw. Say what you have to say. If you're right, the Holy Spirit's on your side. He's big enough to change your husband. But you could be wrong. There is that possibility that you could be wrong. And if you don't leave it alone, you'll damage the relationship. Confront, let the Holy Spirit be the enforcer. Here's another good one. Honor him where you want him to be, not where he is. It's called the cork principle. If there's a bottle and there's a cork laying in the bottom of that bottle, you can yell at that cork as much as you want to. It won't change. But if you pour water in there, it will float up to the level of the water. You can bark at people all you want, but people need to be praised, and men respond to praise. Honor your husband where you want him to be, and you'll be amazed at what your husband does. And here's the final one. Cover his faults and focus on his strengths. The devil is the accuser of the brethren, and he wants you to focus on your husband's problems. Praise is a discipline that reminds us what is right and why we fell in love. Praising God is a discipline that reminds us how great God is. And when you stop praising, you forget. When you stop focusing on positives, the negatives will take over your attention. We have to keep reminding ourselves in marriage what is right, or negativity will destroy the relationship. If all your husband does right is button his pajamas properly, they only have 3 buttons. Get the kids all out in the living room. Every night when he walks out, say, kids, did it again. He's a genius. And just, what does he do right?